Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis once again with another episode of UCM Vibe. And, we take a hiatus every once in a while because we need quality people to bring on the show. And I've decided to bring on somebody who can talk about healing because everybody talks about healing. Everybody's a healer. We don't know what that word means. It's some sort of subjective concept that floats in the ethers. And I figured that we'd bring in somebody who actually has studied the stuff long term, not just 1 year or a weekend. And so today I have in the studio Nicole Frolick. Nicole, welcome.
Hi, David. Good to see you.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to get out of the way is the introductions. I am not even going to try to introduce you and what you do. Nicole, take it away. Tell us everything about yourself.
Currently, I kind of call myself a practical mystic. I do intuitive life coaching, inner child healing, readings, all that sort of stuff. But right now, I'm focusing on a really deep dive of the inner journey of self to heal and go into all of the crevices and nooks and crannies that no one really wants to go into, and kind of act like a surrogate siren for people to actually answer the call that they're so scared of, but don't know if they're going to get lost where they're going if they go too deep into the abyss of their own emotions and past and all that. So I kind of co-captain them through a deep psychic descent into healing their past, soul fractal healing, basically reclaiming themselves, transforming themselves, and then help them reemerge, rebirthed back to the conscious level of life, back to the surface of the waters, and really kind of come emerged with not just healing, but a better idea of what their purpose is, what their strengths and talents are that have been hidden in their fears, in their pain, and give them an actual blueprint to take action in that in their life.
That was a hell of a lot to unpack, but I'm definitely going to try. Let's start with the
You
concept.
asked.
Let's start with the concept of healing.
Yes.
Everybody says that word. Everybody's trying to heal from something, right? Like that could mean anything right now because honestly, I went to the gym this morning and
Yeah.
my ass needs healing. So, when we're talking about healing, we need different kinds of concepts and we need to set a sort of a scope of practice.
Mhm.
So, many people go through life in unawareness and they find themselves in situations and events that are not necessarily the most advantageous. So tell me, Nicole, are you? How do people get into these places? And when you say healing, because a lot of them just carry around trauma, like people should be just wearing signs like I have early childhood trauma and so on. If you are not particularly intuitive, you will interact with these people and the trauma spreads like a cancer. Yeah? So talk about that for a moment.
Well, avoidance is usually what gets you into deeper issues and problems with your life. We're usually given many signs along the way of things we need to start looking at. The healing journey is about self revelation, it's about exploring who you really are. And also, I believe healing is about uncovering a lot of your own hidden potential. So a lot of times we don't follow the path that we truly want to, and that's because we follow the path that that we feel we have to follow. And people will take initiative on behalf of what the world says they should be doing. And I find that as you do that, you lose more and more of your own autonomy, who you are. You lose connection with your passion for life. And you just start to lose little bits of yourself along the way because you keep sacrificing your needs and what you want. And you keep trying to please basically the world, so to speak. And so what happens is as you move through life, trying to please your parents, trying to please your teachers, trying to please the world, whatever it is, you lose little bits and parts of yourself. And so to me, healing is really about kind of going back and following the breadcrumbs of reclaiming those parts of you so that you can actually reconnect with who you really are. Now, the problem is that a lot of those parts are stuck in trauma. They're stuck in a lot of pain. And that's why we've left them there. We didn't have the capacity when we were younger at certain stages of our life to have the tools, the knowledge, the consciousness to deal with that pain. And so now at this given point in our lives, we're being called to go back and use what we know to start dealing with the things that we didn't deal with before in the past. And through dealing with that, a lot of people, you hear the saying a lot, you can turn your pain into your purpose. And I truly believe that there's something to that saying, because from what my experience is, every time I've gone into the deepest parts of my own pain, I've uncovered more of my own purpose, my own talents, and really what I'm here to do in this world.
Okay. So I want to go through an exercise because we don't do typical broadcasts. We get really deep into the matter. Okay. I want to go through an exercise with you. We're going to go through the typical life of a woman, girl, child, young female adult. And then we're going to go through the lifespan of the typical boy, infant boy, adolescent, young man, man, and we're going to like trace some traumas along the way. Typical.
Okay.
Okay, let's do. You want to go male or female first?
Doesn't matter to me. Let's go male.
Okay, so we're gonna give me a man's name, a boy's name.
Charles.
Okay, so let's say Charles. So little Charles been brought into the world, and he witnesses the interaction of his parents. Okay. The interaction of his parents is that they have certain roles that they fulfill in the house and they fulfill for him. Okay? So Charles's father is supposed to give him direction. Charles's mother is supposed to give him nurturing, or so they think, or so he thinks. This is assuming that we're living in the 60s and everything goes well. Okay? Right? Even in the 60s, it didn't go well. All right? All the time. So now, but nowadays it's definitely not going to go as well as people think. Okay, so this is the setup that we have. So let's say that Charles's parents assumes those gender roles. There are certain expectations of Charles. When Charles's father is around, he has to behave. But he respects his mother less because he doesn't have to behave as much because she's not the disciplinarian. Okay, so he adopts a healthy, fair / respect for his father. Okay, and his mother is the person that he will run to and cry to. This is the beginning of the mama's boy complex. You know what that is, right?
Never met it before in my life. Never dated it.
That's the beginning of the mama's boy complex, okay? Because he's going to run to mommy, but he has to prove something to daddy. Make sense? So that's the beginning of the mama's boy complex. When you have a mama's boy in your office, because we're going to go through bit by bit, how do you deal with it from a healing perspective? Because that embedding of these roles and expectations is the beginning of future trouble. We all know this.
Well, I'll be really honest with you, David.
I can't wait to hear this one.
I don't know if I would attract the mama boy client. Simply because I'm going to give it to you straight. I will have compassion for all my clients through their healing, but we're not going to dance around the truth. We're not going to make it all better just so it feels better. And so really, if I were to have a client like that come in, there would be a bit of a come to Jesus moment in the first session. There would be basically kind of see the father appear in the body of a woman.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So let's say that Charles is going into adolescence. He's meeting other boys and girls his age who have
Mhm.
different ideas. They come from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. So he's now interacting, for want of a better word, with the social structure. Okay? Society as a whole. Okay. So Charles comes in with his ideas and he realizes, oh, my ideas are not the only ideas, right? But it's the nature of human beings that if I like Colgate and you like Crest, one of us must be right.
Okay.
One of us must be right. And it ain't gonna be you, okay? So Charles interacts with the society, and now he has a um, an adversarial conflict of ideologies. Okay, so now he's like, my mommy and my daddy does things this way. Your mommy and your daddy doesn't do things that way. Therefore, one of us must be right, and it's not you. Okay, and so we have a different kind of trauma because now he has fit in, especially he has to fit in with certain societies. If he is lucky, he will be open and accepting. But if he comes from a traditional background, he won't. Okay. And so now you have more future trouble being created because he's going to also interact with girls as well, the opposite sex. Let's just assume that Charles is an only child. Sorry. Sorry. They call a white building like disgusted to you right now. Let's say St.
The
Charles
little
is
monster.
right. And so he's going to go home and tell his mommy and daddy about all the different ideas that are out there. Right. And like little Susie doesn't have a daddy, as an example. And little Emily um, stays up at night and stuff like that. Some of them are beneficial, some of them are not. And his father and his mother are going to be judgmental, and that creates expectation. Expectation, right? So he goes loaded in with a bunch of ideologies, and they rub up against people's expectations, his peers. And his peers are going to reject him because he's being a little ass.
Mhm.
And it's the rejection, the initial rejection, right, that says that you are not worthy to be our friend because, and he doesn't see it, of his whatever ideologies and so on. The initial rejection is in and of itself a trauma. And so, what that looks like in later life is that he now is going with a point to prove everywhere. You've met that in your office, right?
Oh, yes. Well, in not just the office.
Okay. Yeah. So, tell me, how do you deal? How, because we want to give some advice to the audience when you run into Charles, the young man, the young adult coming at you with all of this stuff on board. This is earlier trauma that he has. How do you deal with Charles, really?
Well, to me, like right off the bat, that's a third eye chakra issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're talking about the mind, we're also talking about ideologies, we're talking about limited belief systems or being really rooted in one belief system and not allowing for others. And so uh, that tells me that he wasn't necessarily allowed to maybe think for himself, had to think
Correct.
in the way of his parents or one of his parents,
Mm-hmm.
most likely his father, if that's the one who he respected the most
Mm-hmm.
or feared the most.
Oh.
And also, when that happens, it really shuts down one's own ability to discern. It shuts down one's ability to make better decisions for themselves by getting a wider perspective of assessing the lay of the land and what they're looking for. So unable to really read the room because not really interested, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue Charles's life. Charles meets the girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
the
Oh dear.
girlfriend, the
Okay.
opposite sex, the girlfriend,
Is
and
he like Catholic and she's like Buddhist or something?
not yet. Not yet. Too soon. Too
Okay.
soon. He meets the girlfriend. Charles has certain kinds of ideas in his head about how this should go. He's seen it by his parents. Dad makes decisions both in and out of the bedroom. So he should make decisions both in and out of the bedroom, even though he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
know anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And even he's new at this, right? But he has a point to prove. I'm a man. I
He's
have
a fake it till you
cojones.
make it.
I have cojones. I am a total man. I am man squared. Okay. And so he has ideas in his head, and he meets the girlfriend, and he's dating the girlfriend with certain ideas in his head. And the girlfriend is like, yeah, we're not living in the 1960s there, Charles. Charlie boy. Like, stop. Okay. And so he has certain expectations for his girlfriend. And one of the things that usually messes people up is human sexuality. And it's not very often talked about, specifically because, yeah, that's why it's not talked about, because a whole bunch of people have trauma on board where it's concerned. So when they run into somebody who just talks about it, blase, is like, what the hell? Stop, you're making me uncomfortable. Yeah, we're going to make you guys uncomfortable today. Okay. All right. So he, Charles is a man, so he wants the sexual experience. And obviously, he thinks that the woman is supposed to be submissive. Okay. That's number one. He thinks that the woman is supposed to be submissive in certain kinds of roles. His ideas are very solid in his mind. Let's say he comes from the Catholic background that you are discussing. Then
Mm-hmm.
everything he does, he'll feel guilty about. Okay, everything. Like if that boy went to Sunday school, oh my God. Okay, but he doesn't realize that he's feeling guilty because to be a man, his father has told him, you know those emotion things that you have going on? Yeah. Whenever you're in front of me, I don't want to see them. All right. So he would run to his mommy and break down and says, Mommy, the kids don't like me. Oh my God. I'm just going to take my ball and go home. Right. That kind of thing. He brings that to the girl that he's dating. Mm-mm-mm. Aren't you just totally interested in Charles right now?
Totally turned on.
Okay. All right. So let's say that Charles is in this relationship. What
Mm.
advice do you have for Charles's um how should I say potential dating partner where Charles is concerned? Apart from run, what other what other advice would you have for Charles's partner?
Well, um, she's gonna basically turn into his mother. So be prepared to do some babysitting, um,
Hmm.
emotional babysitting.
Hmm.
Uh, it's interesting because you also need to understand the dynamics of the polarity that brought these two together, right?
Yes, we do.
And so for her, it'd be wondering, like,
Oh, we're going to get to the girl in a while.
okay, what do I say to her? I mean,
Yeah,
why, okay, does she have a concern already? Does she know what she's in for? Or like, has she,
I think a lot of women are blindsided because they're expecting the best. And when it is, it manifests because you don't know anything about somebody when you first meet them. You have to interact with them after a while, right? And when it comes to things that are hidden, like the traumas that people don't, the blind spots, so to speak,
yeah,
they come out only in specific occasions, like triggers.
yeah,
So, for instance, Charles is not going to be domineering unless, of course, he is talking to his girlfriend about politics and she says, well, I'm voting for
yeah.
the other guy.
I would say to her, prepare for some emotional manipulation starters,
Yes.
because
Yes.
that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to manipulate your emotions when things don't go his way,
Mm-hmm.
or he doesn't know how to deal with the situation. So he'll just, you know, break down and look to you to make it better by making you responsible for his emotions.
Yeah, or he might run to his mommy to he's going to tell his mommy on you. That also happens in
Oh, and
like
then so then
all.
you could have a mother who would like to get in the middle of your relationship.
Listen,
Uh,
I used to be a practicing psychotherapist, okay? Let me tell you something. I've had 50 something year old people telling on their spouse to their parents. I'm like, what? How how- is this is that real? Like they literally run to their parents and tell on their spouse. So this is not something that's located just down there, right? In the early stages. Okay, so obviously what is being built there in the recesses of the traumas that he's experienced, having to shut his feelings down in front of his father so that he'll be accepted, right? Having to use his mother as a dumping ground of his emotions that he can express anywhere else, right? Mommy will give him a hug, etc., and so on. You're building something akin to a narcissist. He needs to replace that mother. Okay, there's a technical term for that. It's the Oedipus complex, right?
mhm.
He wants to replace his mommy. And so some of it gets really, really sick, okay? And I'm going to tell you guys this. I mean, because that's why healing is important, okay? Because I have seen evidence of people, men, who have been in my office. I don't know if you've seen the same. And they pick the woman that looks exactly like their mother. Oh my God. It's so bad, Nicole. It's so bad. It look exactly like their mother. And I'm looking at the similarities that I'm like, that could not have gone over your head, right? Right? So some of that is a real thing, or they have traits like other mothers. So Charles, as a grown ass adult, he's married the woman, right? Don't ask me why the woman married him. He's married the woman.
Okay.
Okay. He's now a married man. There is only one type facing he has in his mind, and that is what his parents did. Okay. Now, the only way that works is if his spouse is exactly like his mother, right? But human beings are like fingerprints in terms of their personalities. So they're definitely coming to you for advice, Nicole. They're in your office right now. All right, Nicole, you have the man who is now probably become a full fledged narcissist because he's been validated by somebody marrying him. He probably went to school, he probably got the degree, he probably has a job and he's making the money and stuff like that. And he's doing what his father did, right? So he thinks that there's a right way to do things and there's only one right way to do things. And it's like maths, there's only one right answer. Okay? The
Mhm.
building of a narcissist. They're now in your office because things are not going so well.
Imagine that.
All right. How do you you see this is the kind of question I wouldn't want to answer that question myself. How do you referee this convergence of trauma and healing?
I mean, personally, I just don't think the smartest thing is for them to be in therapy together at the beginning.
You good?
I think this is something that individually needs to be looked at first, um, because there are so many nuances of knowing how to navigate it
Mm-hmm.
that need to be
Mm-hmm.
revealed
Mm-hmm.
before even tackling this together. Would be like, at least from my perspective, that's how I would see it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I say that because when two people are in therapy together, they're not exactly themselves, right? There's a little bit of a show. There's a little bit of um, there's something distracting them, and also giving them a reason to play up on. And so, for the man, since we're talking about Charles,
Mm-hmm.
oh boy, you go back to this idea of rejection,
Mm-hmm.
and this fear of rejection, as well as uh, the strict ideologies that don't allow him to see outside of the box that he's put himself in and the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would definitely be going back to inner child work with him.
Yeah, agreed.
In really kind of looking at some of his deeper fears that are not getting addressed. They're getting masked through this, I would say, bravado of narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I would say there's a level of anger that would need to be addressed towards the father,
Mm-hmm.
most certainly, and healed there. So that's just a quick analysis,
Yeah.
very brief.
With
Shooting
regard,
from the hip here, David.
what?
Shooting from the hip here.
No, no, no. No, I agree. I absolutely do agree with you because I think when before, the Kama Sutra has it correctly. Okay. And for those of you who don't know, the Kama Sutra is not about, sexual position. It's actually a book about relationships. All right. So anyway, but everybody just focuses on the 8 pages. It says that in order for you to think about interacting with the opposite sex, for you to think about interacting with society in general, you had to master 64 different skill sets, okay? And they weren't like complicated skill sets, it was like stuff like singing, reading, writing, and stuff like that. And the reason why that is because you had to make yourself 50-50, which means that you had to address the things in you that were um, taking you off center. Okay. Now, a lot
Mhm.
of people walk around, as I said earlier on, in unawareness. They have a lot of trauma on board and they don't realize it's there. Other people don't realize it's there until a trigger hits them. Okay. So, for the case we're talking about, which is Charles, you could pretty much guess the kind of woman that Charles is going to try to date and marry.
Mhm.
Okay. And so that woman or that little girl or that young lady was going to come with her own bag of traumas, right? And we could go through them quickly because we want to talk about it on an individual level. It's going to come with sit like a lady. You're 12 years old now, you can't play with the boys, okay? Because you have now bumps on your chest. Okay. It's
A
going
lot
to
of
be
shame.
yeah, it's going to be the shame of, that change of life, that puberty change of life. Okay. It's going to be the sectionalization. Father expects you to be the saint completely. Mother expects you to be a lady and she puts a whole bunch of stuff on you. Okay. You got to look this way. You got to be this way. You got to buy this thing or you got to do this thing and you got to, right? And I've seen so much shit pumped into young ladies' heads from their parents, right? Like serious neurotic shit, right? You have a mother who's telling you you gotta dress a certain way, or else you'll never get a husband. That has actually come out of the mouths of a lot of parents around the globe. I would say 80 to 90% of them, the mothers give the daughters neurosis. They absolutely do. So at the age of interacting with Charles, let's say at a dating level, she will have her own bag of neuroses, self confidence issues, body issues, and so on, like that. How do you deal with women who have those kinds of issues?
Well, the reason, yeah, and the reason why she's, um, you know, being attracted to someone like Charles is because of her lack of personal power, which has been stripped of her through her sexual center. So And I say that because obviously the root chakra, the sacral chakra, is extremely important. The sacral chakra is where we are allowed, right? It's our need for permission, our need to be allowed, our need for variety, and being able to change our feelings, to change what we're doing on a whim. And all of that gets restricted in someone like this. What's her name? What's our girlfriend's
Let's
name?
call her Debbie.
Debbie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Apologies to all the Charles and Debbies
Yes.
out there. We're not
All
talking
apologies
about
to
you.
Debbie.
Go ahead.
And Charles's. So so Debbie has a lot of frozen energy, literally, in her sexual center, which through my own healing journey, I've discovered is the ultimate power center of all of us. The root chakra, the sacral chakra, that is where our ultimate power is, whether you're a man or a woman. And that's why we're taught to suppress it through this reality, through this world, why we meet up all of these challenges. It's designed this way so that we can also learn how to reconnect with it and discover it and then utilize it in a new way. And so she is going to match up with someone who will have power over her because she has learned to give it away, been taught to give it away, to that it's bad, that it's not good for her. And so through shame and guilt more than anything, if she's had a lot of feelings around, sexuality that she then feels guilty for, then she ends up denying herself things. And so this wound of guilt and denial in the sacral chakra shuts down all of the creative centers, all of the passion, all of the ability to really truly understand your feelings and understand what her needs are. So she has no idea what her needs are anymore. So she's so disconnected from her own needs. Therefore, she's going to connect with someone who only wants her to think about his needs.
Listen, this has been something. This has been a story that has been told 1,000 times over and over again in every therapist's office across the world. Okay. Now, if the young lady accepts the ideas that she is less than, okay, I mean, she went to Sunday school as well, right? So if I'm talking to you, Debbie, I just want you to know that you were taken out of a rib out of my side to make you. So at any point in time, I want my rib back. So this is the kind of nonsense that is being fed into people. But I do believe, right, it's not only gaslighting from men that is a problem. The indoctrination from the mother is also very much a problem. It's very rare that I see a mother who's empowering or building the fire in her daughter. They usually try to quell that fire very early on, and they think that they're doing it for a good reason because they want their little girl to be happy and give them grandbabies. Oh my God. Like everything is making me cringe today. Okay, right, right. Give them babies, and the only way that's gonna happen is if that fire goes out and she finds herself a good man who's going to give her grandchildren. Yeah. So that kind of programming does happen, um, and Debbie has a choice to accept or reject. If she rejects, then she will be ostracized not from society but from the emotional availability of people. Okay, so you're going against your mother's wishes. Your mother will still interact with you and love you, but and as for the father, he like, I wash my hands of her. Okay, and so that is always going to be a problem when a young lady or a young woman comes into your office. There's a lot of baggage that young lady is going to be bringing into your office. Okay, body consciousness issues. Okay, that's at a physical level. Self-esteem issues. Okay, spiritual neutering. I call it spiritual neutering because people teach little Debbie to lock off root chakra, lock off throat chakra, which is the expressive construct, right? Right? And we don't want you seeing too much either. So you might want to close down that third eye a little bit as well. We don't want you seeing. Okay, so tell me, what is the healing path that you're going to take with regard to that? Remember, Debbie's in your office all messed up, all locked up. You could just see the locks put on her, the hooks and the locks put on her.
Ooh, there would definitely be a path of reconnection to her feminine energy. So, really her understanding what it means to be feminine, but then also reconnecting her to her masculine energy as well, because she's been disconnected from both, but she's probably on a physical level disconnected from her feminine through her body. I would say that see, I would have a lot of fun with Debbie.
Go ahead. Yeah, tell me.
Because I love awakening the sacral chakra. I love awakening that area, the root, the sacral, and it's because I've just spent the majority of my healing journey awakening that area since I was literally 20. So the sacral chakra, which is where she doesn't feel like she's allowed to have her needs met, and the throat chakra, which is our truth center and how we express and communicate. There's a direct tie between these two energy centers. They're twinned. And so if you don't know what your feelings are, because you're never allowed to really understand what they are, everyone else's feelings matter, not yours, then you don't really have a path to communicating them well. Or even understanding what the truth of your feelings truly are. And so with little Debbie, I shouldn't call her little Debbie, but little Debbie inside definitely needs, Debbie needs to know what the freak flag looks like and how to fly it. So, and that comes through first reclaiming herself and reclaiming herself through first her feminine energy and sexual power. And then once that is done, then we can start opening up like the masculine channels for her to actually express, communicate.
Understood. Okay, that's now, you see, now that's where we make the progress. Now let's do a deep dive. Both of these individuals, Debbie and Charles, are going to have issues, okay? And when they interact with each other, the issues are going to spark and trigger and do all sorts of things. Because here's the thing that I've found. You can lock a little Debbie down as much as you want to, but and I call it, and I hate to use these cliches, there's a still small voice inside Debbie screaming to get out, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Debbie's not going to do exactly what you tell her to do because sovereignty is her natural state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? She's been indoctrinated out of her natural state, but sovereignty is what the natural state is. Free-spirited, right? And heaven forbid that little Debbie's an empath. Let me tell you a little bit of the story. Let's take a little segue here. Okay?
All right.
A lot of people think that empaths are a complete mess, okay? In my life, I have surrounded myself with empaths left, right, and center. I find them the most useful people to have around me. Would you like to know why? Because an empath is going to tell you every blind spot that you have if you are open to receive it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you think you have your shit under construction and you have your shit together, get an empath around you, and an empath is going to tell you the shit you are missing. Okay?
Okay.
Absolutely. And I have surrounded myself with empaths left, right, and center due to the fact that they not only can tell you your blind spots, they could tell you the blind spots of other people that you interact with. Yay. So they're actually the most useful people out there. The problem with empaths is that they may not be too useful to themselves, because I have a running joke, and I'm going to let you have that joke as well, Nicole. The joke is like this. An empath walks into the bar. That would be the whole joke. the whole joke. Okay? However, however, an empath who is your friend and around you can tell you what is going on within yourself that you are not paying attention to.
Mhm.
Okay? Very useful people to have around. Very useful. Okay? And in return, I would hope that you protect that empath with everything in your being because let me tell you, empaths are always beset upon by other people. So little Debbie may be an empath, and the narcissist function in Charles is going to be attracted to that because now I can dump. It's like little Debbie looks like a skip. I can just dump all my shit in, right? So that kind of interaction is going to happen. But the thing about it is that even in little Debbie's indoctrination, there's a still small voice where the sovereignty lies, that is going to tell her something is not connecting correctly. And she's
Mm.
going to rebel. She's not going to help us. She can't help herself. A lot of people get into situations where they would like to acquiesce to the demands of others, and then they find that their mind starts sabotaging them left, right, and center, right? Because the mind is like, yeah, we're not having any of this shit. And if you don't deal with it, I'm going to deal with it. Okay? It's kind of like emotional Tourette's for people. So you've seen those kinds of situations, haven't you? Where people just start sabotaging things left, right, and center.
Yes, yes. And the thing with, okay, in this scenario where we're talking about Debbie as an empath and Charles as a narcissist and this kind of behavior, and the reason why is because, again, boundaries are usually tied to the mother wound, which is usually related in the sacral energy, right? The root is the father because the root chakra is all about protection, safety, security.
Mm-hmm.
And the mother is all about emotional nurturing and needs and tending to. It's about feelings. And so, in general, what happens is a lot of empaths don't have great boundaries because they've got some sort of mother wound in there where they weren't taught to have good boundaries either. And I say that because your needs were never important. Okay, your needs were never important, so you never knew where to draw the boundary between your need and someone else's need, and when your needs were being trampled upon. So there was just a free for all. And so a lot of empaths will attract the narcissist from that state because, one, it's a very codependent foundation, right?
Correct.
And so now you can play out that wounding where none of your needs matter and only the needs of your partner. And what's going to happen is, and what I like to do with my clients is when I'm doing inner child healing with them, I often will take them through a very deeply visual guided meditation, individual to that person specifically, so that and I'll target certain things with that person that I'll
Yes.
get from them before we start. But if I understand that the energy of the root and the sacral are frozen like that, one of the first things that we're going to do, maybe not the very first thing, but very soon into the healing, is we're going to get tapped into that anger. We're going to get tapped into, this isn't fair. This isn't right. And
Correct.
start
Yes.
to really kind of unleash that, because you need that fire burning at some level to start activating some of the healing initiatives that are going to need to take place.
Absolutely, because that fire comes with a certain amount of personal power,
Yeah.
right, to take control of your life. And the fire is usually put out at a very early age. This is a path of healing that people often overlook. Anger is always given a bad rap. There's a reason why you have it, you know?
It's a very powerful emotion when used correctly and when mastered. And because we're taught that angry people are bad people, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people have complexes around wanting to just be a good person, they won't tap into their anger. And a lot of times it's because you've been so disconnected from your own power, you actually are afraid your anger will consume you, which is a valid concern in some cases. But you may need to put yourself in a safe place where
Mhm.
you can allow your anger to consume you so you can go through the burn up, where you allow the anger to actually burn you up and then be reborn through your own anger. Anger is gives you the motivation to actually care where you didn't care, and give you a fighting spirit to tackle the issues ahead of you. And what a lot of people don't realize on the healing journey is that until you reconnect with your own personal power, and anger is part of the path of getting there,
Mhm.
you will never have the energy to fully move through the healing that you need to move through, because that power is your wellspring of energy that you're going to tap into through every part of your healing journey. And the more you build it, the more likely you are to come through this path actually healed versus stuck in some like no man's land of trauma healing.
I love this segue we took because a lot of people, we're going to deal with the emotions right now. Okay. So let's say anger. Listen, anger can help you get through a lot of things in your life
Mm-hmm.
because if you use it correctly, as Nicole just said, you who are sitting on the couch with your tub of ice cream, just pissed, just feeling worthless and so on. Anger is what is going to make you get up. It's going to make you get up, right? Very much connected with the adrenals. It's going to make you stand up, get up, stand up, just like Bob Marley. Okay? And so that is one emotion. The other thing that is a problem for people who have healing crises is the concept of love. A lot of people do not understand how to utilize love, especially self love, in a positive way. A lot of people have this idea that love is this concept that, well, I love you and that's how I feel. A lot of people mistake love for familiarity. A lot of people mistake love for a lot of sorry, I'm sorry. A lot
Oh,
of
let me
people
tell you
mistake
about
love for
familiarity.
familiarity. A lot of people mistake love for codependence. A lot of people mistake love for a number of things. Okay, and so they can't use it correctly, and so they always get themselves painted into a corner, right, where their love is literally destroying them from the inside out. Okay,
Mm.
now, you talk about anger could be positive, love could be extremely destructive. When you
Mhm.
start throwing that word around, like love, I love this, right? I love that. And like, I totally love this person. I totally love that person. Okay. Just a little hint, guys. If you have to put a prefix in front of love or a suffix at the end, when you use that word, it's probably not the love that you're requiring for positive interaction. Okay, if you totally love somebody, chances are there's a but in there somewhere, right? And so whenever I usually ask people the question, do you love yourself? It's a curveball question. It's a sort of mind-bending question.
That was the first question asked to me on my healing journey by my naturopath, who was also one of my great spiritual mentors in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, Nicole, do you even like yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You ever wanted to see waterworks come out of someone's eyes so fast? It was like the most triggering thing because it came out of left field because we were talking about my dad. And then all of a sudden, it was just like, what? How you just turned this on me? Like what?
Yeah, yeah. It's a mind bender. Do you love
Yeah.
yourself? People have
Mhm.
to ask themselves this question because if you love yourself, you're not going to put yourself through shit.
Mm.
You just won't. A
Mhm.
lot of people can't conceptualize themselves outside of themselves. Okay? So here's another mind bending question. If you were not yourself, would you like you? Right? Let's try that way. If you were
Yeah, I
not
know,
yourself, would you
right?
like you? I ask people this question. If you were not yourself, would you like you? Would you take care of you? Would you date you even? Would you
Oh, this is the thing that I say to people. You know, David, I literally did an Instagram reel about this maybe a month or two ago, about how like everyone's so concerned about like their ideal partner and who they're going to
Yeah,
manifest, and I'm like, but are you even where you need to be the partner that
yep.
ideal partner would want to date?
Listen, I externalizing the self to see the self to love the self
Yeah.
is something else. A
Hmm.
lot of people cannot externalize the self to see the self and say, "Yo, I really like myself. I like me. I like me. I love me. Right? I'm going to take care of myself." And a lot of people can't do that, but you asking somebody else to do that for you, whether it be your parents, whether it be a loved one, your family, your friends, and so on. If you can't do that for yourself, nobody is going to do it for you because you're starting from a position of, I actually don't even know what I want. Horrible. And a lot of people what would it take to love me? Here's another mind bending question. What would it take for me to feel love, or for somebody, or for to love me? What would it take? Is it going to take like 5 minutes of attention? Is it going to take 10? Like, how do I gauge that? These are questions that we actually have to ask the audience.
You
So,
know what? This is why so much manifestation fails.
yep, right there.
Because you've called in something you yourself have not even prepared yourself to be the person able to receive it.
Ain't that the truth? You call
Uh-huh.
it's like it's like you have a bow and arrow. The target is in front of you, but you choose to turn around the other way and fire it in the opposite direction. Look, guys, I think a lot of people don't ask themselves these kinds of questions, specifically because they don't really think about it. So I challenge people to step outside themselves and look at yourself. Am I a likable person? Do I really want to, like, honestly, like, if I met me somewhere, would I want to sit down and have a conversation? If I met me somewhere, would I want to sit down and have a conversation with me? Well, like, just looking at me, and a lot of people live in an unawareness, and it's the unawareness that's the problem. So when we say the application of love, we mean it's starting from yourself, huh? So are you taking care of yourself? Do you put yourself in shit continuously, asking yourself, shit, the world is against me? No, you're against you. Okay? The world is not against you, because the thing about it is that people who practice a lot of self love develop a kind of intuitive awareness about themselves. The application of love in the right way, they have an intuitive awareness of when shit is around the corner. Okay? For those of you who are having trouble with your psychic sense, start with self love.
Oh gosh. Ain't that the truth, David? Oh my gosh. Like I'll tell you, my intuition only got super strong once I started doing all of my inner child healing.
Correct.
Like my intuitive abilities just skyrocketed the more I started to like nurture her and love her all the ways that I was missing growing up. And it's not that my parents were bad people. Most of us have decent parents, who are just doing the best they know how. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't what I needed. And that's the problem, is that none of us know what is truly needed until we actually learn how to give it to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start to nurture your feelings, and your needs, which again, I'm going to go back to the sacral chakra, which is what? It's our gut, right? It's our intestinal tract is there. It's where we feel everything. So your intuition is highest through this portal. And so when you do your healing, which again is taking care of your needs, that is an act of self-love. And so, yes, your intuition is only going to get stronger through that
Correct.
act.
And just so that we're clear, Being intuitive and psychic, that would be your natural state. That
Mm-hmm.
would be your natural state. Everything else that you're experiencing, that density, that feeling like a brick, that would be the unnatural state. Okay? If you're not intuitive, then you're off center. It really is that simple. Okay?
Yes.
It
Yeah.
really is that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we did love, we did anger. Let's deal with the emotion that we call fear.
Oh,
I am not going to give you a bunch of cliche, false evidence appearing real. No, we're not going to go there. We're going to go somewhere completely different. Why is
good.
fear, why is fear useful? Why? No, I've read all
Oh,
the
I'll tell you why
cliche
fear is
books.
useful. This is like something I've actually just been facing so much in the last few weeks. Well, intensely, but also I would say over the last year or two.
Hmm.
I have this saying in one of my book that I wrote. I said, "Fear is the lighthouse to your greatest potential."
Ah,
Whenever I've had great fears come up in my life, what they're truly doing is like a neon sign flashing.
hmm.
This is where you will make the most impact in your life. This is where you're going to find your biggest joy if you can move through this. This is where you're going to find your purpose if you can move through this.
Hmm.
This is where everything that means the most to you is lying. And so fear is like a beacon to the place where your soul wants you to go so much. But of course, the ego does not want you to. The
Yeah.
ego wants to just stay safe, right? And every traumatized part of you wants to stay safe.
Hmm.
But fear is, well, we have such a weird, distorted relationship with fear because of our world now and what we tend to allow ourselves to be fearful of versus actual real things that are indeed need to be feared of. Um, but to me, fear is an excellent teacher of giving us an opportunity to tap into, again, that wellspring of power that is dormant within you, to move through it and actually see what you're capable of on the other side. And I feel like that's a lot of our mission in this life, is to discover what else are we capable of. You know, you didn't just come here for a vacation, and healing and learning how to rewire yourself so you're not succumbing to the fears, but you're learning to move through it and learn how to deal with it, so to speak, and still do it anyway, is part of the lesson. And I used to have an incredible death scare of public speaking. Would you know that today? Like, I used to be so deathly scared of public speaking as a kid. When it came to public speeches every year, I would run to my mom because she was the writer in the family. And I said, "Mom, I need you to write my speech for me." And like, because I don't know what to do. And just the fear of even thinking I had to speak completely shut down all my creativity processes. And
Understood.
so she would literally write my speech for me every year. And I would go through all this anxiety for months leading up to it until the final day. And then of course I would do the worst job possible because it's not my words. It's not coming from me, and I'm trying to skate around it. But in my late 30s, early 40s, so not that long ago, I realized that it was time. Since I was 25, I always saw myself standing on stage talking to large groups.
Hmm.
And I always wondered, why the hell do I keep seeing that? Because that is not something I would really want to do. And at the same time, deep somewhere inside of me, I was like, but it is something I want to do. And so by starting a podcast, by doing videos on YouTube and doing interviews like this and all that, I learned to conquer that fear. And now what I found out is the little girl inside, my inner child, she freaking loves holding a microphone. She loves to talk. in
Yeah,
front of
you bought
people.
yourself an expensive Shure microphone. That's an expensive. You get.
And
Go ahead.
there's a joy that comes from it. And it was something that I would have never known had I not been willing to work through such, and I mean
Mhm.
terrifying fear of public speaking.
So I want to just make an analogy here. You want to know why most of you guys are walking, like walking right now? It's because when you were a baby, you saw the adults walking, but your little legs didn't understand how to hold you up. But you wanted to be like the adults. So you had to conquer your fear, fall down, get back up, fall on your ass again. Okay? Until you got stronger. Let me tell you what fear does for you. It gives you that barrier that you must crawl over to build a kind of resilience inside your system so that you become better. Okay? And I usually liken it to that old cliche of the moth trying to get out of its cocoon. It has to fight and fight and fight. You think it listen, if I was the moth, stay in the cocoon. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. It's nice and safe in there. Nobody bothers you. You come out, some bird is gonna try to eat you. Okay? But it fights because it has to. Okay, and a lot of people are in a cocoon state. They're in this kind of state where they're all locked up, and a lot of the problems that we have, a lot of people say, oh, fair is about fight and flight. No, the majority is about freezing. People stuck in a particular state that they can't move past because that state is safe. That woman who is staying in a marriage because of the kids, you're not staying because of the kids, you're staying because you're afraid.
Let me say this,
Mm-hmm.
because you said that very well, David. Fear is the threshold between the person you've always been and the person you're waiting to become.
Yep.
And
Yes.
until you cross that threshold, you will never become the person that you dream about, that you know is locked up inside you somewhere. It is a threshold you must cross. There's no way around it.
When you look at people that went through fear barriers and you see how they move in this life, the things that they're able to do, they're not afraid of risk. They're not afraid of throwing themselves off of any cliff because they're either going to fly or they're going to break a bone and do it again and learn how to fly the second time. Okay? But eventually they're flying one way or another. If you develop that attitude, and this is one case study, I mean, like that woman is staying in a loveless marriage because of the kids, because she's afraid of this. People make excuses for themselves, and fear is what is holding you there. No matter where you are, I keep telling people, Nicole, I keep telling people, it's not where you are right now, it's where you end up that matters. It's where you end up that matters, and a lot of people that goes over their heads. It means that you got to stare fair in the eye and say, "Yeah, thank you for the lesson. You're not stopping me.
Mm-hmm.
You are not
Mm-hmm.
stopping me." And a lot of people choose. It's a sink or swim situation.
It
But I
is. And to be very vulnerable with you and everyone who's watching this right now, I've recently just had to face a fear straight, like dead in the eyes.
Mhm.
And I mean, broke down, emotion, crying, like just terrified. But knowing that if I don't make this change, because that's what fear asks you to do, fear asks
Yep.
you to change. If I don't make this change, then everything's going to stay the same. And I'm so done with things staying the same. And that, I think, is someone calls it like this deathbed gut check, which I really love. It, I check in with myself and I say, at the end of my life, am I going to regret staying the same, or am I going to regret trying to change into the person I've always become or I wanted to become?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is always, always, I'll regret staying the same. And the reality of things not changing to me was way scarier than what might happen or not happen on the other side. And I'm like, I'll take my chances. I'll risk it. And that's what we have to do. We have to be bold at certain times, but you can't be bold. You can't be bold if you don't have a little bit of anger inside you.
Agreed at 100%. Well, we've dealt with anger, love, and fear, which is basically the basic human emotions. There are a few others that we could deal with, but we've come to the end of our podcast, which really has been the most stimulating podcast. I hope it's been helpful for you guys. If you see yourself in what we're talking about, you know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, underneath this podcast, you will see Nicole's email, which is Nicole at, oddly enough, NicoleFrolick.com. And her website is NicoleFrolick.com. Okay, so contact her and set up a session because Nicole will assist you with your blockages. Nicole, tell us about what you have going on in terms of your business and so on. Tell us what programs you have running, and we'll call it a day.
Well, thank you so much for having me in this conversation. I really enjoyed it. I've recently, earlier this year, launched a program called the Forbidden Journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hosted a retreat here in Colorado, Breckenridge, in September, this past September, and I'll be hosting another one in April next year. So tickets for that just went on sale. So if you're interested in taking a Forbidden Journey, which is a very deep experience of ceremonial processes, meditation, some plant medicine, all of that, I would highly suggest checking that out. The deep transformations and healings were had by everyone who was at the last retreat, literally to the point of restored healing in someone's ear after 20 years of loss. So I don't play around when it comes to the healing game. I want you to go deep. I want you to get the most out of your journey. And because that is what I know is on the other side is incredible beyond explanation. I also have a podcast, Enlighten Up, and perhaps, David, I'll have you on soon as well as a guest. I'd love to have you on. And of course, if you need any help with inner child healing or any kind of intuitive coaching readings, all of that is available off my website.
Okay, well, that's it for us this week. Join us next week or the week after, depending, where we explore something totally different and totally interesting. Take care, guys, and we'll see you soon.
Breathe and relax. Come into oneness. Come into unity, whatever that means to you in this moment. Allow distractions to fall away. And let's take a few moments to settle in, drawing our attention to the breath and simply observe any sensations associated with each inward and each outward movement.
Hello, this is Juliet Karaman van Schardenberg, and welcome to this meditation for sleep. First, I'd like to invite you to get... Hello, and welcome to this meditation. My name is Juliet Karaman van Schardenberg, and I'll be guiding you today. To prepare for this meditation, which will lead